This is the new Black Bay Monochrome in 41 millimeters. Now, I've always been a big skeptic when it came to the Black Bay lineup. I never really understood the hype, especially when it came to the 58. But my friends over at Martin Bender had the Monochrome in stock and let me borrow it for a week. And man, wow. Was I surprised on how much I loved this watch. They're authorized dealers for Tudor, Omega, Hamilton, and many other brands. So if you're interested in the Black Bay Monochrome or any other Tudor for that matter, go ahead and reach out to Tyler. I'll put the contact information in the description box below. And before we get started, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really does help the channel. All right, let's flip that camera and get into the specs of the Tudor Black Bay Monochrome. We have a case diameter of 41 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 49.3 millimeters, a thickness of 13.4 millimeters, a lug width of 21 millimeters. Size to my wrist, it weighs in at 154 grams. Comes with 200 meters of water resistance, a boxed sapphire crystal with no apparent AR coating. Powering this watch is the in-house MT5602-U. This is the Metas certified master chronometer movement. Comes with 4 Hertz, 70 hours of power reserve, is accurate to 0 to plus 5 seconds per day. It is magnetic resistant to 15,000 Gauss. And with the 5-link bracelet, this is priced at $4,550. Now diving in deeper past the specs, let's take a look at that dial. We have a slightly domed sunray finished black dial. We have silver finished hands and indices filmed with bright white superluminova. We have a triangular indice at the 12 o'clock, batons at the 3, 6, and 9, and circular indices everywhere else. At the top of the dial, we have the standard Tudor stack with the shield, the word Tudor, and Geneve. And at the bottom of the dial, we have 200 M, 660 feet, and then master chronometer written under that. And below the minute track, we can see Swiss made. And as you can see, there is no date window on the monochrome, so it is perfectly symmetrical. Moving on over to the case, we have circular brushing on the top of the case, a polished bevel edge, and polished sides. The 60-click stainless steel bezel has a black aluminum insert and a luminous pip at the 60 minute. We have a 7.5 millimeter screw down crown that is signed with the Tudor Rose logo. The coin edge knurling on the crown matches the knurling that's on the bezel. And as you can see, it is a very clean look with no crown guards. Now moving down to the 5-link bracelet, we have brushed links on the outside, polished links on the inside. The side of the bracelet is also polished and held together with screws. The bracelet tapers from 21 millimeters down to 15.7 millimeters and then back up to 17.7 millimeters at the clasp. The clasp itself is brushed on the outside and polished on the middle. There are ceramic ball bearings that cut down on the wear and tear on the clasp. And while this watch doesn't have a diver's extension, it does come with the T-fit clasp, which gives you about a link and a half of adjustment. And on the back of the watch is your classic Tudor caseback, which does not allow you to look at the new movement inside. So overall, I like what Tudor has done with the monochrome. They've stripped out all the color on this watch. There are no more gilt indices, no more tinted lume, no more gold text. And while all the color has been stripped away, they added the new 5-link Jubilee style bracelet, which really adds to the monochrome's look. I love the way it looks on that bracelet, even more so than the rivet bracelet that typically comes on the Black Bay. But first, let's get into the pros and cons of this watch before I give you my final thoughts. And we'll start off with the cons. And the first con is going to be the 21 millimeter lug opening. 21 millimeters just seems like a big miss here. I really wish they would have gone with a standard 20 millimeter opening. It is just a more common lug width, and you probably have a surplus of leather, sailcloth, rubber straps in your drawers that you're willing to put on this watch, but you can't because it is a 21 millimeter opening and not a 20 millimeter opening. I mean, I guess you could have a little bit of a gap there if you really wanted to. I don't know about you guys, but I have a lot more 20 millimeter straps than I do 21 millimeter straps, so I wish it would have been a 20 millimeter lug width here. That way I can easily switch out my straps. Now, to be fair, I wouldn't really wear this on anything but that 5-link bracelet because that bracelet looks so good. But if you are one to switch out your straps very often, just note that this is a 21 millimeter lug opening, not a 20. So hopefully you have a big catalog of 21 millimeter straps. And the only other con I have with this watch is the lack of AR coating. At $4,500, there should be ample amounts of AR coating underneath that crystal, maybe even some AR coating on top of the crystal. But to have no AR coating at all, it is a big miss, especially when it comes to a luxury brand like Tudor. But that's enough of the cons. Let's move on over to the pros, with the first pro being the finishing of this watch. We have circular brushing on the top of the case, high polish on the bevel and on the sides, a brushed and polished 5-link bracelet going down to a brushed and polished clasp with ceramic ball bearings to reduce the wear and tear. We have great knurling on the crown. The coin edge finishing on the bezel allows for great grip, and even going down to a macro level, the finishing on the hands, the indices, the printing are all great. My next pro is going to be the functionality of this piece. The 60-click bezel is crisp and is easy to operate. The screw-down crown threads and unthreads nicely, not to mention the winding of this watch is buttery smooth. The ceramic bearings cut down wear and tear on the fold-over portion of the clasp, and the T-fit clasp itself is slim and operates without a hitch. It works flawlessly. My next pro is going to be the Master Chronometer 5602-U movement. Not only does it hand wind nicely, it comes with 70 hours of power reserve, it beats at 4 Hertz, and it is highly accurate from 0 to plus 5 seconds per day. And I believe at this price point, it is one of the most affordable METAS certified movements out there. My next pro is going to be the dial, and usually I like having a date window, but with this being a dateless version, it is perfectly symmetrical and clean. The dial text is minimal and printed nicely. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, the lume on this watch is basically as good as it gets. While the numerals on the bezel aren't lumed, we still have a lumed pip at the 60-minute, and for me, I actually prefer that layout versus a fully lumed bezel. To me, I think it looks a little bit classier, and having a fully lumed bezel just gives me more of a tool watch vibe and not a luxury watch vibe. And my last pro is going to be how well this watch wore on my wrist. I was actually quite surprised. This watch wore basically as good, if not better, than my Omega Seamaster. I love the proportions of this watch. I think it's just thin enough for a dive watch. The 5-link bracelet looks gorgeous on this watch. The high polishing against the brushing looks great. And the monochrome scheme of this Black Bay just elevates it to another level. And even though it's more boring than other Black Bays, I think this is also more timeless because it doesn't have all of those bright colors that may fall in and out of different fads. So there it is, the Black Bay Monochrome. I'm really thinking about adding this watch to my collection, and I say that a lot. But this watch really reminds me of my Seamaster, which I am wearing here, and I will be doing a comparison between the Seamaster and the Black Bay in a later video, but it feels so good on the wrist. It's perfectly proportioned for a dive watch. It has the right level of finishing. It has the new METAS certified movement. It comes from a brand with lineage and history, and also the sister company to Rolex. And yes, I know people call this the Tudor Submariner, but is that necessarily a bad thing? Should you buy this watch as a placeholder for your Rolex Submariner? I don't necessarily think so. I think this gives off a different vibe with the aluminum bezel, with the aluminum dial. I don't think it's nearly as refined as a Rolex Submariner, and this gives off more of a vintage vibe, as the new Submariner gives off a more modern vibe of a dive watch. So I think they can both coexist in your collection while not necessarily being a ripoff of one or the other. All right, guys, that's the video. Once again, thank you to my friends over at Martin Bender, and if you're interested in the monochrome, please reach out to Tyler. I'll go ahead and leave his contact information in the description box below. And if you're still here, what video to watch next? Go ahead and watch my 2024 State of the Collection right there, where we talk about all the watches in my collection, from my main watch collection to my extended collection. Go ahead, click right there. It's great. It's great. Click it now. Go now.